The Apollo program. On May 25, 1961, President John F. Kennedy challenged his country to safely send and return an American to the moon before the end of the decade. NASA met this challenge with the Apollo program. It would be the first time human beings left Earth orbit and visited another world. The Apollo program played a crucial role in space exploration and made it possible to explore more distant worlds further in the future. The Apollo program consisted of 11 space flights. The first two missions, Apollo 7 and 9, were Earth-orbiting missions used to test the command and lunar modules. The next two, Apollo 8 and 10, tested various components while orbiting the moon, also taking photographs of the lunar surface. While Apollo 13 did not land on the moon due to a malfunction, a total of 6 other missions did and returned with a wealth of scientific data and almost 881 pounds of lunar samples. The first manned mission to the moon was Apollo 8. It circled around the moon on Christmas Eve in 1968. Just over 6 months later, on July 20th, 1969, the world witnessed one of the most astounding technological achievements of the 20th century when a NASA astronaut upon Apollo 11 became the first human to set foot on the moon. The Apollo 11 mission lasted 195 hours, 18 minutes, and 35 seconds, about 36 minutes longer than planned. After lunar orbit insertion, the command module and lunar module separated. While one crew member remained in the command module, which orbited the moon, the other 2 astronauts made the historic journey to the lunar surface in the lunar module. After exploring the surface and setting up experiments for 21 hours and 36 minutes, the astronauts returned safely to the command module and began the journey back to Saturn V was the most powerful rocket that had ever flown successfully and was used in the Apollo program in the 1960s and the 1970s. The rocket was 363 feet or 111 meters tall and weighed 6.2 million pounds or 2.8 million kilos when fully fueled for liftoff. The Saturn V used for the later Apollo missions had 3 stages. Each stage would burn its engines until it was out of fuel and would then separate from the rocket. The engines on the next stage would fire and the rocket would continue into space. The first stage had the most powerful engines since it had the challenging task of lifting the fully fueled rocket off the ground. The first stage lifted the rocket to an altitude of about 42 miles, or 68 kilometers. The second stage carried it from there almost into orbit. The third stage placed the Apollo spacecraft into the Earth orbit and pushed it towards the moon. Shortly after the trans-lunar injection maneuver that placed the Apollo spacecraft on its trajectory towards the moon, the transposition and docking maneuver would be performed. This involved an astronaut separating the Apollo Command Service Module spacecraft from the adapter, which fastened it to its launch vehicle upper stage, turning it around and docking its nose to the Apollo lunar module, then pulling the combined spacecraft away from the upper stage.